resources. If you go to the S Drive, campus documents, the faculty resources, there's a disability support services folder. In there, there's going to be a universal design, and then that's broken down into the handouts that you have today, as well as the additional reading. There's, I think, about 5 different studies that I've pulled out that are, I think, like the essential studies, and they cover a wide variety of different topics, all under like universal design for instruction, but then there's universal design for learning, the idea of differentiated instruction, and that's the basic there. And then there is one thing that I do want to show real quick before we finish up. While I'm doing this, are there any questions? Yes.
You said at the very beginning that more people are being labeled or whatever, identified as disabled. Do you think that's because they are more aware of this and are being diagnosed, where in the past it wasn't true? Or do you really think there are more disabilities than there used to be?
Well, that's a really good question, actually. I believe that the ADAA in 2008 is really where the largest increase has come from. And
didn't they expand the definition at that time?
Yes. And so since that point, I think that that's where it's coming into play. I also think that our department, we moved. We're in a heavily trafficked area. I know that Andrea, our assistant, she keeps track of just how many different people come in and what different areas they're seeking information, and she notices a significant increase in where we are. I think that there's, I think that it's a multi-layered answer, really, with the ADAA, with our department kind of being out there, more people being aware of that. I think that, yeah.
So I was thinking in terms of the data that's been collected, that the analysis might be skewed somewhat due to the recognition of disability now that wasn't there before. But we could have had the same population in a lot of ways, and you just...
It's just how it's defined,
right.
And what population that actually
so there's nothing
includes.
out there that really tells you that that's true or false.
No. And I don't know that they're even at a point where they're able to gather all of that information. I mean, if you're talking like we're just 4 years in now at this point, I think that they're going to continue to gather that and figure out some areas where there might be overlap and that sort of thing.
I think the other thing that's happened is that we have increased ability to assess things that we couldn't assess before, diagnose and identify.
Well, that's what I was wondering
Yeah,
also. And so more people are becoming aware of these things and then are taking notice and say, well, you know, I think
Right.
that's something like
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
Exactly. And then last, I think, I hope, I wish, that as we normalize disability, if you will, some of the stigma is, sliding away, and so people are not so reluctant to, to work with that. Exactly.
And I think that there's even a large population that are not coming forward to identify. I know that we're working a lot with veterans, and there's a lot of stigma there where they hesitate to come in. They don't want to identify being disabled. And primarily, the 2 primary disabilities that we see there are PTSD and TBI. TBI is one of the most difficult things to diagnose.
That's traumatic brain injury.
Yes, sorry. Thank you.
I'm just going to ask.
So because of that, there's a huge population that there are people that could have a traumatic brain injury that they don't know it hasn't been diagnosed. Oftentimes, if it is a traumatic brain injury for that person, it manifests itself as a learning disability in the classroom. That's what they'll see. They'll often come to our office. Well, I'm having a hard time, and it's talking.
And back to the initial question about, is it an increased awareness or is it an increased percentage of the population? There are a couple theories that I have read, and one of the theories is that due to environmental changes with chemicals, artificial sweeteners, you name the issue, and sometimes the science is there and sometimes the misperception is there. And so you never know, but the ongoing wars and especially war in the past, we saw casualties. With now advances in science, people are saved, their lives are saved, but they're without limbs, they're with brain injuries, they're with other things, that sort of thing. And then the other big factor in terms of population that we deal with is in the past, generally speaking, folks with disabilities, whether they be mobility or learning disabilities or whatever, didn't have a prayer of succeeding in college, and so they never attempted. And so now there's increase in that population, not because they're more or less out there, it's just they now have access and dreams that are not unreachable. And then, quite frankly, it's self-fulfilling also. You take a look around the country, there are specific institutions of higher ed that cater to folks with disabilities. So they have a much higher population because they attract them, because they accommodate them and go to extra extremes. And going back a few centuries, I was a student at college, university.
A few centuries ago.
Yes. And there was a very large population of folks in wheelchairs because every intersection there was a yield sign to pedestrians because they catered to the folks in chairs that otherwise cars would never stop for. And so the policies, procedures, things like that, so consequently the environment, the welcoming that you talked about, things like that. I do have a clarification that I think is germane to the entire presentation and why you're saying the universal design. But my example is the closed caption. When instructors, all of us, but show a movie or a video or whatever, movies, old technology, old language, I guess, a video. My thinking, and check me on this, but my thinking is we ought to automatically turn on closed captioning rather than assume that nobody needs it, or assume that because there is not a diagnosed learning disability that would not have a benefit to somebody in the room. And now that's the whole concept, I think, behind the universal design is you don't wait until somebody identifies or you identify, but rather you just do it for everyone, so it's more inclusive.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah, if you think about people, think about different learning styles, right? Somebody might be a visual learner, I need to see it and watch it, so watching a movie, that's gonna be something that's gonna resonate better with them. Whereas you might have somebody that's more of a reader and, actually reading the closed captioning, that's gonna be what's gonna trigger the memory for them later. So having that on at all times, the idea is that it should benefit a wide range of persons. Up here on the screen, the Adobe Screen Reader, PDF formats, the paper document format. It's really easy to create those from a Word document, and once you get into the PDF section, this is a how-to manual. Again, this is on the S drive where all of this content is. If you come up here to view, read out loud, and activate read out loud, I'm going to try this. I don't know what it's going to sound like in here. It might be really loud, so it usually takes it a moment to activate. Then you should. Right, it's not working up there. Right. Oh, and it's up as high as it is here. But you can remote. The remote here. We'll try this out. Okay. Be prepared. No, perhaps not. But this will at least show you that if you have a student that's having difficulties, or they just make a comment, I just really prefer to hear things as opposed to read things. If they have a document file, they can save it as a PDF, and they can do this on their own, and it's free. It's completely free. They don't have to pay for anything. They already have Adobe downloaded on their computer, so it's not like they have to go through and download anything else. All right, so that's just one last resource.
And that screenshot there is Adobe Reader?
Yes, yeah. That's actually, it's actually,
My eyesight is one of my disabilities.
yeah, it's just a picture of another document that I have in
Uh-huh.
a PDF, and then how to find where that's located, and then just read through it.
Very good.
It's something that we hand out to students that come and visit our office, and use that sort of technology. All right? Yes.
Can you use that with, that you can save PowerPoint presentations in PDF format? So,
You might be able to. There are oftentimes difficulties with that technology. They're still working out the kinks on that. Graphical images, so say you put a pie chart on there, a picture, that's not going to read. I know that we've noticed some difficulties in opening up certain PDFs. Apparently we have to have what's considered a full version. I don't know the difference between a full version and a regular version, but I do know that when we have a full version and we open it, it'll read. I don't know if you could hear when I first started that, but it read blank first. Sometimes that's what will happen. You'll go through Activate Read Out Loud, and if you click on it and it just says blank, then that means that for some reason it's not reading that file. I usually just contact IT and have them come down, and they uploaded what they consider the full version. Like I said, I don't know the difference, and that solved the problem for us.
The full version allows you to create things, and specifically like to lock security and whatever with it, et cetera. So you can create it with it.
I
And
mean,
then
the full version of Adobe, is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the full version of the PowerPoint or,
No.
Sorry.
No,
yeah, versus, 3 or 4 slides.
Yeah.
And the other one just allows you just to convert it